to begin, how did you guys came about? Like, how was Los Padres born? Did you guys have single careers before that? Were you guys, single artists and then met and decided to do a duo? How did you guys come about?
So we kind of came about through a little bit of chance and opportunity. We both had separate careers before that. I've been doing some remixing for some major labels like Atlantic, Big Beat, Def Jams, and stuff like that for like the iHeartRadio platforms and Mix Show Radio. Gino has had a lot of success as well with support and playing throughout the country. And we had a mutual producer friend who just thought our projects together could really make something pretty unique and pretty awesome.
Great.
I'm more of a synthetic kind of background, and Gino is more of a classically trained musician. He's, he plays the cello.
I saw that on your IG, Gino. Yeah, I thought.
Yeah, so it's really cool. So when you bring those two elements together, we kind of fill the voids that each of us, find empty in our own production and stuff like that.
You kind of balance each other out in that sense. Like, I'm really intrigued to know how your dynamic works as a duo. How are you able to work on tracks together, whether you're in the same room or not? And how do you begin a track? Do you have something in mind that you talk to, or do you just get inspired as you produce?
Usually with Carlos and I, we are always inspired all the time. We come from different backgrounds, as he stated before, but we love a lot of the similar sounds and music, which is a great thing. So we're always shooting each other songs and inspirational tracks that we might find, whether that be something house related or something even more melodic related. So the good thing is that we're always on each other's toes and always on new releases and stuff that really, keeps us always learning new stuff, and also sound design, which is really important for our productions as well. So something we like to keep is a melodic structure, and also something that keep up with the 2020 sounds that are going on in the production world as well. So we're always keeping each other inspired with music.
And I'm just intrigued to know how the dynamic of a duo generally works. Like, how do you feel the fact that you're a duo helps you produce? Does it make the process slower, but maybe you push yourself creatively more, or does it make it faster because you help each other whenever you're not feeling inspired?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of like a math and law of averages. I always kind of talk about this. The more opportunities you throw at the dartboard, the more probability you have of getting a bullseye, which is that hit, right?
Yeah.
That really good collaboration or that really good network. So we both bring like our assets to the table every time we kind of start something new or generate an idea. We probably exchange music on a daily basis. We exchange demos and creative ideas.
Should an artist get stuck to one specific genre that ties to their brand, or do you believe in artists having the freedom to develop themselves creatively?
As a young producer, if you're growing into your sound and you're trying to find your sound, let that be the priority first. So if you're trying to find something that inspires you, learn how to, get to that point first. And then, if you for example, if you're trying to go into specifically bass house, research and see what other bass house producers are doing. Once you get to a certain point, whether that be an exhaustion of the genre or, you just don't feel like you can learn enough, bounce out to another genre. And then down the road, 6 or 8 months from then, you start picking and choosing different elements from those genres that you're producing, because you're not really creating a tunnel vision, or you're not, single laning yourself, but more creating, hey, I got a bass that I made from, a Mesto bass, and then I got a Tiesto lead that I got, and you just start cross, sounds and elements, and then there you go, you find a new genre.
What tips would you give to those producers to like, even though they're using the same thing that everyone else is using, how do you make something different and unique to what everyone else is making?
So if I want to sound different from somebody else in the room, you've got to randomize the way you approach your production, right? So you've got to do something a little bit different. Sometimes I take melodies in different keys and I transpose them to the key that my current song is at, and I might invert my melody or I might reverse my melody. And what that does is it creates something by chance and by opportunity.
Exactly.
Just like an arpeggiator would, right? Have that same approach with your production. What can you do to randomize your production? And through that randomization, you might create something very unique that nobody else is doing. Sometimes we catch ourselves listening to people's demos and music, and we hear samples that we have come across in sample pack. What's happening is people are clicking and dragging and thinking that, well, I found this first, I might have the best chance to use it. That's not the case. The way you got to look at that is, I found this great loop, let me make it my
So
own.
what do you guys think differently, both like music wise and like marketing wise in general, to create a brand that works?
That's a question that can be answered in a lot of excuse me, in a lot of different ways. I guess for something that Carlos and I pride on is branding and sound design, and those are two very important things in 2020 that, you know, I believe a producer, among a ton of other things they should be responsible for in this, and, you know, in this age, to be carrying. But those are two things that we really like to work and pride and just feel like we know a lot about, but we just feel like we don't know enough about as well. So that's, you know, branding is something we're always, you know, talking about and also looking forward to. So when we first started Los Padres, the sound and the branding was one thing unified. 6 or 8 months down the road, we were already thinking about something totally different than what we had initialized as well. So
opportunity is outside of just your great song and your great mix down, because music is subjective. Are you willing to be told that your record is not good enough yet? Are you willing to be told that some changes need to be made? Are you willing to have those opportunities granted to you? You know what I mean? And then how do you handle those situations? Because I think Gino and I have been shot down hundreds of times.
That's awesome to hear, and I feel like that's something that a lot of people would appreciate listening to.
Absolutely. I mean, and we are humble enough to say, hey guys, we've got the automated mailers back saying that it's not the time. We've got the automated mailers back that said we just don't fit. We've gotten it all. But what happened? We went back to that record and we also sent it to another label, and another label fell in love with it, because music is subjective. So if we didn't have those networks of labels or networks of A&Rs, or communicating with people who are in the industry in a certain position, like maybe working at a festival ground, if you don't contact those people and if you don't rub shoulders with them, what kind of opportunity are you really making for yourself?
Exactly.
You know, you're really only betting on your music.
How much do you think, in order to succeed, how much do you think it is music, and how much do you think is getting your ass in front of the right people?
It's 50-50, right? Your music has to be on point. You don't know who you're going to meet. But if and when you get the opportunity to meet that person, you've got to be ready to fly, right? So we took his criticisms, we created this playlist, and that's what we shopped for about 6 months. And I would say 50% of those records got signed. But it took 60 demos, right?
Forever. And yeah.
It took 60 demos to maybe get, 10, 20 placements? So do the math, the law of average, for every 100, you're probably only gonna get 10. And for me personally, if I'm doing a 4 to the floor type of cadence, I want to counter my first 8-bar melody, right? So because what happens, everybody knows that it's gonna hit this second 8-bar, or you're gonna drop into a break.
Uh-huh.
How do you keep the listener listening without skipping your record? You've got to change that melody from, if it's 16 bars, it cannot mirror each other, right? So you've got to take this ass end of that break, of that drop, and change up those notes, change up the voicing of the notes, keep it in the same key, and have it respond to the first half of the drop. That way it makes me want to continue listening, and I can't predict what's going to come next.
Don't know if you noticed in the W&W, back in the days, how they would produce their stuff on the drops. It was like a syncopated reverb sidechain almost, where it's like, and that's something I could hear. And for something like this, where I feel like it would definitely fill in some of the space in the drop. And it's something you could just put on like your reach. I don't know what DAW program you're using for this one, but for example, if you're using Ableton, you put this on like a return, put a reverb, sidechain it to your leads, and then you can put a glue compressor on top of that as well, and that's something kind of fills in for the drop.
Louder.
Right. So to all my Ableton users out there, slap that utility in there, bring it back, bring that mono down, make it a little bit mono before your drop. I mean, and start cutting that stuff off early.
Logic has the exact same utility as Ableton too.
Yeah. So you know what I mean. Any DAW, the science is the same, right? So, you could be watching tutorials for anything and they can relate with everything. I'm going to give you a monumental tip here, okay, on the way that I kind of go about it, talking about Jonas 8 and the groove. All right, so you have a hand clap that goes, right? People think that they want to clip that hand clap loop into their drums to provide that groove. Take that clap export the groove to MIDI, and now that's
Mm-hmm.
your synth group. That's your synth cadence. Not a lot of people do that. And trust me, when people figure that out and they can extract grooves from drums to be their top melodies or their counter melodies, trust me, it's literally a mind-blowing moment. Okay, because people want the grooves in their drums, but you can have groove in your
leads.
melodies.
Yeah.